President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Good evening, and welcome to Today in History. I'm Matt Datillo. Today is February 21st, 2010. Well, the tax season is upon us, and for those of you actually getting money back from Uncle Sam, I would encourage you to remember Matt's Today in History in your donations. There's a possibility that in the near future I will be changing hosting companies for the podcast. Right now I use Mevio, which can be found at mevio.com. Fine company, but their usage statistics are not great. So I would like to move on to someplace that gives me a little more exact figures in terms of listeners, because that's always important if you ever pursue advertisers. I have a general idea now, but nothing close to specific. So anyway, if you're interested in donating, please visit mattstodayinhistory.com. Click on the donation link on the left-hand side of the page. That connects you to a PayPal button, a PayPal page. You do not have to have an account to donate. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get on to the history. Today in 1885, the Washington Monument was dedicated in Washington, D.C. The giant obelisk is probably the best known of the United States presidential memorials, having been named in honor of George Washington, the nation's first president and leader of the Continental Army during the War for Independence. The building of the structure that would become known as the Washington Monument was begun in 1848. The cornerstone of the monument was laid on July 4th of that year. The Washington National Monument Society, a group of citizens who raised the initial money for the construction, settled on a design for a giant obelisk surrounded by a circular colonnade. Had the monument been built to these plans, the finished product would have resembled the Jefferson Memorial, with a giant Egyptian-like obelisk protruding from the top. The designer, chosen from among contestants in a design competition, was Robert Mills. While Mills' design was incredible for its day, there was one problem. The society had raised $87,000, but the finished structure would cost over $1 million. Undeterred by this lack of funds, the society decided to begin work with the money it had in the hopes that a partially finished monument would help them raise more money. This money ran out in 1854, but soon thereafter Congress appropriated $200,000 to the project. However, this money was withdrawn from the society when members of the American Party, better known as the Know-Nothings, effectively took over the society and began to build their anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic beliefs into the monument by refusing some of the stones donated by different states and foreign powers. The block of marble contributed by Pope Pius IX in the early 1850s was removed and purportedly thrown into the Potomac River. It was eventually replaced in 1982. Mismanagement of the hijacked society and the beginning of the Civil War brought construction to a halt for almost 20 years, until 1876. That year marked the centennial of the Declaration of Independence, and Congress, feeling especially patriotic, once again granted $200,000 to the project. The obelisk had been stuck at one-third of its planned height for 2 decades, and engineers were worried that the monument's foundation was no longer stable. Studies were made, and it was eventually decided to move on with the project. Tastes in design had changed significantly in the 30 years since Mills had submitted his plans in the 1840s. It was eventually decided to abandon the colonnades and build a simple obelisk shaped like those found in Egypt. When construction got underway in 1879, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was managing the project. One of the initial challenges facing the Corps can still be seen today. The bottom third of the monument is lighter than the rest of the 40,000-ton structure. This is because the same quarry stones used in the initial construction beginning in 1848 could no longer be found a generation later. Upon its completion in December 1884, the Washington Monument was the world's tallest structure, a record that would stand for 5 years when Paris's Eiffel Tower was completed. The monument's apex point is made of 100 ounces of aluminum, a metal that was almost unknown by people not familiar with metallurgy in the 19th century. It was placed there in December 1884, over 35 years after the cornerstone was laid. The final monument was and is today 555 feet 5 1/8 inches tall and 55 1.5 inches wide at its base, at least according to who you ask. These figures are the ones used by the National Park Service. Others vary only because the aluminum pyramid at the top of the monument has been blunted by about 1/2 inch by lightning strikes. 8 lightning rods were added in 1934, which extend 6 inches above the tip. Some documentation includes these rods in the height total. The walls of the monument become thinner as the obelisk grows taller. At the base, they are 15 feet thick, but only 18 inches thick at the observation level. In 2004, nearly 400,000 people visited the monument. Well, that's it for this evening. As you can hear, our little cat Jenny is telling me that's it for the evening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. My email address is mattstodayinhistory@gmail.com. You'll find this and other previous transcripts of the podcast at mattstodayinhistory.com, along with the donation link I mentioned earlier, and a couple other links. One, if you're interested in buying a Matt's Today in History t-shirt, which in actuality I really don't make any money on, but if you're a big fan and want to wear it around, I don't want to discourage. Anyway, that's it for this evening. Thank you very much, and have a good remainder of your weekend. We'll talk again soon.